I found a letter in my husband's drawer, and it wasn't addressed to me. It was a love letter written in Tom's unmistakable handwriting, spilling his heart to a woman named Clara. My world stopped spinning that day. After 40 years of marriage, 2 children, 4 grandchildren, and a lifetime of shared dreams, how could he hide this from me? Was everything we built a lie? My name is Ellen, and I'm 62 years old. I thought Tom and I were unbreakable, a team forged through decades in Willow Creek, a quiet town where secrets are supposed to stay buried. But that letter, it shattered my heart, exposing a web of betrayal, guilt, and choices that would unravel truths I never imagined. Stay with me until the very end, because this story twists in ways you could never predict, forcing me to confront love, loyalty, and forgiveness in ways I never thought possible. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're listening from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. I'm Ellen Marie Thompson, born and raised in Willow Creek, where the hills roll gently and the pines whisper secrets only the wind understands. It's a small town, the kind where the bakery on Main Street still serves the cinnamon rolls my mother bought me as a child, where neighbors wave from porches and know your business almost before you do. I met Tom when I was 21, a shy receptionist at Harper Insurance, where he was a junior salesman with dark hair that fell into his eyes, and a grin that made you feel like you were in on a private joke. Our first date was at the county fair. He won me a stuffed bear by knocking down every pin with a baseball. That bear, faded and threadbare, still sits on our bedroom shelf, a relic of the love we built. We married 2 years later in a little church with stained glass windows, promising forever before 50 friends and family. Sarah came first, a bright-eyed girl who loved to sing, followed by Michael, a quiet boy who'd spend hours building towers out of blocks. We bought a house on Maple Street, a 2-story, with a wraparound porch, a garden I tended every spring, planting tulips and roses, and a kitchen where I perfected my mother's lasagna recipe, the one Sarah still begs me to make. Tom worked his way up to sales manager, and I stayed home with the kids until they started school, then took a part-time job at the Willow Creek Library, shelving books and reading to children on Saturdays. Life wasn't always easy. There were lean years, like when Tom was laid off in '92, and we lived off savings, and my sewing projects, stitching curtains and dresses to pay the bills. We argued sometimes over money or whose turn it was to fix the leaky sink, but we always found our way back to each other. I trusted Tom with every fiber of my being. He was the man who carried Sarah on his shoulders during 4th of July parades, helped Michael with algebra late into the night, brought me wildflowers on ordinary Tuesdays just because he knew they made me smile. Our routines were sacred Friday movie nights with popcorn and old westerns, Sunday dinners with Sarah, her husband Mark, their kids Lily and Ethan, and Michael with his fiancée Lisa, who's expecting their daughter Sophie any day now. I thought I knew every corner of his heart, every laugh, every quiet moment. That all changed on a crisp October afternoon. Tom was out golfing with his buddies, a ritual he's kept since retiring 5 years ago from Harper Insurance. I decided to tackle his study, a cluttered room filled with decades of paper-sold tax files, yellowed newspaper clippings about local events, books with cracked spines from his days as a history buff. I was elbow-deep in his desk, sorting through a mess of receipts, expired warranties, and faded business cards, when my fingers brushed against something tucked under a stack of tax documents from the '80s. It was an envelope, brittle and yellowed, sealed with a cracked wax stamp that looked like it hadn't been touched in decades. My name wasn't on it. Instead, in Tom's neat, slanted handwriting, the same I'd seen on birthday cards, grocery lists, and love notes tucked into my lunch bag years ago as one word, Clara. My stomach dropped like I'd missed a step on a staircase. Clara? I didn't know any Clara. Maybe a client from his sales days, a coworker he'd forgotten to mention. But the way it was hidden, buried like a secret he didn't want me to find, made my heart race. I stood there, frozen, the envelope heavy in my hands, debating whether to open it. Part of me wanted to shove it back into the drawer, to pretend I'd never seen it, to keep living in the comfort of our life. But another part the part that had weathered 40 years of marriage, through joy and pain needed to know. I broke the seal with trembling fingers, the wax crumbling like my resolve. Inside was a single sheet of paper, folded carefully, the ink faded but legible. The words hit me like a punch. My dearest Clara, every moment with you feels like a stolen gift. Your laughter, your touch, your voice, they're all I think about. I know I promised Ellen forever, but with you, I feel alive in a way I haven't in years. I'll leave her, I promise. We'll start a new life, just you and me. The date at the top read, July 15, 1985. Michael was born that September. I was 23 then, pregnant with our son, chasing toddler Sarah around our cramped apartment while Tom traveled for work. Those were exhausting days' diapers, sleepless nights, arguments over bills that piled up faster than we could pay them. I remembered Tom coming home tired but sweet, kissing my forehead, reading Sarah a bedtime story about talking rabbits. Was he thinking of Clara then? Was he sneaking away to meet her while I rocked our son to sleep, my body aching from pregnancy? I sank into Tom's chair, the letter crumpled in my fist. My chest ached, each breath a struggle against the weight of betrayal. A love letter. My husband, the man I'd built my life with, had written a love letter to another woman, promising to leave Maze behind. Who was she? Where was she now? And why had he kept this, hidden it for 40 years in the heart of our home? I read it again, every word searing into my memory. Your laughter lights up my darkest days. I can't stop thinking of your smile. Ellen deserves better, but I need you. Tears blurred the ink, and I pressed a hand to my mouth to stifle a sob, afraid the sound would make this real. When Tom came home that evening, he was all smiles, cheeks ruddy from the sun, golf bag slung over his shoulder like nothing in the world was wrong. Hey, hon, he said, pecking my cheek. Find anything good in that mess? I froze, the letter hidden in my sweater pocket, its edges digging into my skin. Just some old papers, I managed, turning away to hide the tears welling in my eyes. He didn't notice her, maybe he did, and I was too broken to see it. For days, I carried that letter like a wound I couldn't close. I slipped it into my purse when I went to the grocery store, hid it in my sewing box at night when I mended the kids' clothes. I couldn't bear to leave it behind, but I couldn't destroy it either. It was proof of something I didn't yet understand. Every time Tom spoke about the weather, the grandkids, a leaky faucet that needed fixing, I studied him, searching for cracks in the man I thought I knew. Was that faraway look in his eyes when he stared out the kitchen window, Clara? When he laughed at Sarah's stories about her law firm? Was he remembering Clara's laugh? I started replaying our entire marriage, picking apart memories like threads in a worn quilt. The late nights he'd blamed on work in '85, were they with her? The weekend trips to Chicago for conferences, was she there, waiting in some hotel lobby? I felt like I was losing my mind, trapped between the husband I loved and the stranger he might be. At night, I'd lie awake next to him, listening to his steady breathing, wondering if he'd ever whispered her name in his sleep. I couldn't confront him yet. The thought of his answer, yes, I loved her. No, it meant nothing, terrified me. What would it do to us? To our children? Sarah, 38, with her sharp mind and big heart, saw Tom as her rock, the father who'd taught her to ride a bike and cheered at every school play. Michael, 36, quieter but just as devoted, called him his hero, the man who'd shown him how to tie a tie and navigate life's challenges. And the grandkids, Lily, 10, and Ethan, 7, from Sarah, and little Sophie, Michael's unborn daughter. They adored their Papa Tom, who'd sneak them extra cookies and build forts out of couch cushions in the living room. Could I rip that image away from them? Shatter the family we'd built? The secret festered like a splinter under my skin. I started snapping at Tom over little things, leaving his shoes by the door, forgetting to water the roses I'd planted, burning the toast. Ellen, what's gotten into you? He'd ask, his brow furrowed with concern. I'd mutter excuses about stress or tiredness, but he wasn't fooled. Neither were the kids. Sarah called one afternoon, her voice gentle but probing. "Mom, you seem off. Is something up with you and Dad? You were so quiet at dinner last week." I wanted to tell her, to pour out the pain that was choking me. But how do you tell your daughter her father might not be the hero she thinks? "Just a rough patch, sweetie," I said, forcing a smile she couldn't see over the phone. "Nothing to worry about." She didn't push, but I heard the doubt in her silence. Michael texted later that evening. "Mom, you okay? You barely ate at Sarah's. Talk to us." I brushed him off with a vague reply about being tired, but their concern only deepened my turmoil. I couldn't keep living like this, consumed by questions that had no answers. I needed to know who Clara was, what she meant to Tom, and why this letter had survived 40 years in our home. I became a detective in my own life, determined to uncover the truth without Tom knowing. I started in the attic, pulling out photo albums coated in a fine layer of dust. Page after page of our life unfolded, Tom and me at our wedding, laughing under a shower of rice. Sarah's first birthday, her face smeared with cake. Michael's high school graduation, Tom beaming beside him. No, Clara. Just us, smiling, oblivious to any shadow in our past. I moved to the garage, rifling through cardboard boxes of Tom's old work files, their edges curling with age. I found a program from a 1,985 sales conference in Chicago, one of the trips he'd taken that summer. The attendee list was Long Johns, Marys, Roberts, names of colleagues long forgotten but no Clara. Was she a ghost? A figment of a moment? I checked his old address book, its leather cover cracked and peeling, the pages filled with names faded to smudges. No Clara there either. One desperate night, when Tom was asleep, I did something I'd never done in 40 years of marriage. I logged into his email. My hands shook as I typed our anniversary date 6/12/83 into the password field. It worked, and I felt like a thief in my own home. I scrolled through his inbox golf schedules with his buddies, a fishing trip planned with Michael, a video of Sophie's school play from Lisa. Nothing suspicious, just the ordinary rhythm of our life. I should have been relieved, but instead I felt hollow, like I was chasing a shadow that didn't exist. If Clara wasn't here, where was she? I remembered Tom's old colleague Frank, who'd worked with him at Harper Insurance in the 80s. Frank and his wife, Betty, lived a few streets over, retired and tending a rose garden that won awards at the county fair. I invited myself over for coffee, claiming I was feeling nostalgic for the old days. We sat in their sunny kitchen, the smell of fresh-baked scones mixing with the tang of coffee. We reminisced about the 80s big hair, bad music, the awful polyester ties Tom used to wear. I steered the conversation carefully, my heart pounding. "Frank, you and Tom went to that Chicago conference in '85, right?" He always talked about those trips. Frank nodded, sipping his coffee. "Oh yeah, those were wild days." Tom was a riot back then, always telling stories. I took a deep breath, steadying my voice. "Did you ever meet someone named Clara there? I found her name in some old papers." Frank paused, his cup halfway to his mouth, his eyes flickering to Betty for a split second. "Clara? Maybe. Marketing consultant, real sharp. Why do you ask?" Betty busied herself with the sugar bowl, avoiding my gaze. "Just curious," I said, forcing a smile to mask the knot in my stomach. "Tom mentioned her once, ages ago." Frank relaxed, but only slightly. "She was around for a bit. Nice lady. But Tom? He was all about you, Ellen. Always bragging about his girls, you and Sarah." I nodded, but my mind was racing. Clara was real. Frank knew her. And he was hiding something. I could feel it in the way he shifted in his seat, the way Betty's hands fidgeted with her napkin. I left their house with a hug and a promise to visit again. But the letter felt heavier than ever, a burning weight in my purse. A week later, my phone rang, an unfamiliar number flashing on the screen. "Ellen Thompson? This is Diane, Clara's sister." My heart stopped, the air sucked out of the room. "I heard you've been asking about Clara. Can we meet?" Her voice was calm but firm, like she'd been waiting to make this call. I agreed, my hands trembling as I wrote down the address of a diner just outside Willow Creek. We met the next day, a gray morning with rain tapping the diner's windows. Diane was in her mid-60s, with dark hair streaked with gray and eyes that held a quiet sorrow. She looked like someone I might have passed at the grocery store, but her resemblance to the woman I imagined as Clara was uncanny. Clara died in '86, she said, stirring her coffee. Car accident. I found letters from Tom after she passed. I didn't know he was married until recently. She slid a letter across the table, its paper creased but intact, dated August 1985. Clara, you're my escape, it read. I'll tell Ellen soon. My throat tightened, my fingers tracing Tom's handwriting. He broke it off, Diane said, her voice soft but heavy. Clara was heartbroken. Then the crash took her. I stared at her, my mind reeling. Why tell me now? Diane sighed, her eyes meeting mine. Her daughter, Beth, found out, my niece. She's 37, angry, wants answers. She thinks Tom might be her father. Clara had a child. Was it Tom's? Diane shook her head. Clara never said who the father was. Beth's been digging, and when she heard you were asking about Clara, she pushed me to reach out. The diner seemed to spin around me. A daughter. Tom's daughter? I needed to know, but the thought made me sick. I invited my sister, June, over that evening. June's 5 years older, widowed since her husband Ray passed a decade ago, living in a cozy cottage across town filled with her watercolor paintings. Over tea in my kitchen, I showed her the letter, my hands still shaking. She read it silently, her gray eyes narrowing, then squeezed my hand. Ellen, I've been there, she said. Ray left me for a year in '87. Another woman. I forgave him, not for him, but for me. You're stronger than you know. Her confession hit me like a second betrayal. June, always so composed, had carried her own secret pain. Talk to Tom, she urged. But brace yourself. The truth hurts. Her words echoed as I planned my next move. The secret was consuming me. I stopped sleeping, my appetite gone, my reflection in the mirror, a stranger with shadowed eyes. Tom noticed, hovering with concern. Ellen, you're scaring me. Please, talk to me. I couldn't, not yet. Sarah invited us to her house for a family dinner to celebrate her promotion to partner at her law firm. The house was warm with laughter, Mark grilling steaks in the backyard, the grandkids Lily and Ethan chasing fireflies under the oak tree. Michael and Lisa shared plans for their spring wedding, talking about wildflower bouquets and a string quartet. Tom was in his element, tossing Ethan in the air, teasing Lily about her new ballet shoes, his laughter filling the air. I watched him, the letter a phantom in my pocket, its words etched in my mind. I'll leave Ellen, I promise. How could he sit here, so at ease, with that in his past? After dinner, Sarah cornered me in the kitchen while we washed dishes. Mom, you're not eating! You barely said a word all night. What's wrong? Her brown eyes, Tom's eye searched mine, full of worry. I'm fine, sweetie. I lied, scrubbing a plate too hard. Just tired. Michael joined us, drying a glass, his face serious. Mom, we're here. You don't have to hide anything. I hugged them both, tears threatening to spill. I know, I whispered. I'll be okay. But I wasn't. That night, I decided I couldn't carry this alone anymore. I needed the truth, and I needed our family to hear it. I suggested a dinner at our house the next weekend, telling Tom I wanted to bring everyone together. He agreed, oblivious, already planning his world-famous roast recipe. I also called Tom's older sister, Margaret, who lived an hour away in a retirement community. Margaret, 68, had always been the family's keeper of secrets, her sharp tongue softened by years of wisdom. Ellen, what's going on? She asked when I hinted at trouble. You sound like you're carrying the world. I didn't tell her about the letter, but her concern made me wonder if she knew something about Tom's past. The day of the dinner, I was a wreck. I spent the morning cleaning, baking bread, arranging the dining room table with my mother's old China thing to keep my hands busy and my mind from spiraling. Sarah and Mark arrived with Lily and Ethan, Michael and Lisa with their wedding magazines, the grandkids' laughter filling the house like music. Tom stood at the head of the table, carving the roast, joking about his culinary skills, his eyes crinkling with that familiar warmth. I watched him, my heart torn between love and rage. Over dessert apple pie, Tom's favorite eye couldn't hold it in any longer. The letter was in my skirt pocket, its edges worn from my constant touch. "Tom," I said, my voice cutting through the chatter like a knife, "I need to ask you something." The room went silent. Sarah's fork clinked against her plate. Michael's eyes narrowed. The grandkids stopped giggling. I pulled out the envelope and held it up, my hand trembling. "Who's Clara?" Gasps rippled around the table. Lily whimpered. "Papa?" Sarah whispered. "Mom, what's going on?" I unfolded the letter, my voice shaking as I read aloud. "My dearest Clara, every moment with you feels like a stolen gift. I know I promised Ellen forever, but with you, I'm alive. I'll leave her, I promise." The silence was deafening. Tom stared at his plate, his hands gripping the table's edge. "Ellen," he said finally, his voice barely a whisper. That was 40 years ago. He confessed everything. In 1985, at a Chicago sales conference, he met Clara, a marketing consultant with a quick wit and a warm smile. He was 25, overwhelmed by the pressures of a new baby, a demanding job, and a young marriage. For a few weeks, he thought he loved her. He wrote the letter late one night, drunk on whiskey and regret, pouring out feelings he didn't fully understand. But he never sent it. He ended things with Clara before they went too far, choosing our family instead. "Then why keep it?" I demanded, tears streaming down my face. "Why hide it for 40 years?" He met my eyes, his own glistening with tears. "Because I was ashamed, Ellen. I didn't want you to see me as weak, as someone who wavered. I kept it to punish myself, to never forget what I almost threw away." Sarah was sobbing now, her hand over her mouth. "Dad, how could you?" Michael's fists clenched, his voice sharp. "You let us believe you were perfect." The grandkids were ushered to the living room by Lisa, their small faces confused. I looked at Tom, the man I'd loved for 4 decades, and felt a storm of emotions. Anger, hurt, but also a flicker of relief. He hadn't left, he'd chosen us. But was that enough? The dinner ended in awkward silence, the kids leaving with tight hugs and promises to call tomorrow. Tom slept on the couch, giving me space. I lay awake, replaying his words, trying to decide what to believe. The next morning, I went back to his study, needing to know if there were more secrets. I found no other letters, no hidden affairs. But I did find a journal, buried in a box of old files, its pages yellowed but intact. It was from the 80s notes about work deadlines. Sarah's first words, "My cravings for pickles when pregnant with Michael." One entry, dated August 1985, stopped me cold. I told Clara it's over. I love Ellen. I love our family. I was a fool to think otherwise. I'll spend the rest of my life making it right. My breath hitched. There was more a photo of a young woman, dark-haired and smiling, tucked inside the journal. On the back, in Tom's handwriting, "Thank you for reminding me what matters. Clara." I sat there, tears falling onto the page, piecing it together. He'd ended it. He'd chosen us. But the story wasn't over. I found a second letter in the journal, dated September 1985. "Clara, I'm sorry. I can't leave my family, but I'll help you whatever you need." Help her? What did that mean? I called Diane, my voice shaking. "Clara was pregnant," she said, her tone heavy. She told Tom it wasn't his, but he sent money anyway for years through a mutual friend. I thought you deserved to know. Money? Our money? I dug through old bank records in the attic, my hands trembling as I flipped through faded statements. There they were, small, regular withdrawals in the late 80s, labeled consulting fees. Thousands of dollars, siphoned from our savings when we were struggling to pay the mortgage. When I was sewing late into the night to buy Sarah's school clothes, Tom had been sending money to Clara, maybe to her child, without ever telling me. The betrayal cut deeper now, not just emotional, but financial. A wound that touched every sacrifice I'd made for our family. I confronted Frank again, this time at his house, no coffee to soften the edges. "What else do you know about Clara?" I demanded. He sighed, rubbing his temples. "She died in '86, Ellen. Car accident. Tom went to her funeral, torn up with guilt. He sent money to her sister for her kid, Beth, thinking it was the right thing to do." I stared at him. "He never told me." Frank nodded. "He didn't want you to hurt. I met Beth, Clara's daughter, at the same diner a week later. She was 37, fierce, with dark hair like her mother's and eyes full of anger. "Is he my father?" she demanded, her voice sharp. I didn't know. We arranged a DNA test. The wait, agonizing. While we waited, I turned to June for strength. She came over, her watercolor-stained hands steadying mine as we sat in my kitchen. "Ray's affair left me broke," she confessed. "He came back, but I rebuilt alone. Forgiveness isn't for them. Ellen, it's for you." Her pain mirrored mine, but her resilience gave me hope. I called Margaret, Tom's sister, too. "Did you know about Clara?" I asked. She hesitated. "I heard rumors. Tom was lost that summer, but he came back to you. He always did." Her words stirred a new question. Had others in Willow Creek known? I overheard whispers at the grocery store, old neighbors glancing my way. "Poor Ellen," one said. "She never knew." The town had carried Tom's secret, too. The DNA test came back. Tom wasn't Beth's father, but he'd known Clara was pregnant, assumed it wasn't his, and sent money out of guilt, draining our savings when we needed it most. "He abandoned her," Beth said, her voice bitter. "He sent money, but he left her alone." Tom wept when I confronted him. "I was scared, Ellen. I didn't know what to do. I thought I was helping. I learned more Clara had been running from her own past, a broken engagement in Chicago, when she met Tom. Diane revealed Clara had lied about the pregnancy to keep Tom, only to lose him and her life soon after. Another twist came when Margaret confessed. She'd met Clara once at a company picnic and warned her to stay away. "I protected you," Margaret said. But I hurt Tom by keeping silent. The layers of secrets piled up: Tom's, Clara's, Margaret's, even the town's. We started talking, Tom and I, raw and endless conversations that peeled back 40 years. His journals revealed more letters to me he never sent, filled with love and regret. Sarah and Michael softened, inviting us for Thanksgiving, their kids' laughter a fragile bridge. June urged patience, her own scars a guide. Beth left, angry but quiet, seeking her own peace. The town's whispers faded as I faced them head-on, my head high. I'm still navigating forgiveness. Some days I see Tom's choice to stay, his love in every wildflower, every fort built with our grandkids. Others, the letter end, the money esting like fresh wounds. But we're here, flawed, fighting for our family, one honest word at a time. Have you ever faced a betrayal that shook your world? How did you find your way through? Share your story below. I read every comment. If this touched your heart, please like and subscribe for more stories from the heart. Thank you for being here with me.